What's up guys, Calvin here, and I'm going to show you how to play Exosister on Master Duel. This guide will hopefully assist you in understanding the Exosister archetype, the effects of each sister, their support cards, basic combos, how to one-hit KO your opponent, and general dueling advice. So sit back, grab your Bible, some holy water, and enjoy. The Exosisters are nuns turned soldier who spend their time tracking and hunting demonic spirits to cleanse the evil, war-torn world they live in. This is depicted in the card art where you see them form teams of two in order to assist each other with the spirits and demons they come across. The teams the Exosisters have formed are also reflected in the card effects that we will touch upon later. Each sister also carries with them an amulet they can activate, which allows them to tap into the holy energy, thus transforming them and upgrading their physical abilities to better assist in the battle against the undead. Being nuns, the Exosisters are essentially the graveyard police, specializing in eliminating graveyard effects, banishing from the graveyard, and preventing monsters from being summoned from the graveyard, which can be devastating against decks like Sprite, Tearlament, Snake Eye, Unchained, and other graveyard-dependent decks. Overall, this deck is incredibly straightforward, easy to learn. Now let's dig deeper and learn about the 5 Exosisters and their respective effects. Like I mentioned earlier, the Exosisters work better when they work together. Stella allows us to summon another Exosister monster from our hand. If the summoned monster is Exosister Elise, you gain 800 life points. Elise allows us to special summon herself to the field, assuming another Exosister monster is already on the field. If the monster on the field is Exosister Stella, you gain 800 life points. Sophia allows us to draw a card, assuming you have another Exosister monster on the field. If Exosister Irene is on the field when this effect is activated, you'll gain 800 life points. Irene allows us to place one Exosister card from our hand back in our deck and then draw a card. If Exosister Sophia is on the field when this effect is activated, you gain 800 life points. Exosister Martha allows us to special summon herself and Exosister Elise from the deck, giving us easy access to 2 level 4 Exosister monsters. I will now demonstrate all of these effects for you in Master Duel. Stella allows us to summon another Exosister monster from our hand. Elise allows us to special summon herself to the field, assuming another Exosister monster is already on the field. Sophia allows us to draw a card, assuming you have another Exosister monster on the field. Irene allows us to place one Exosister card from our hand back in our deck and then draw a card. Exosister Martha allows us to special summon herself and Exosister Elise from the deck. It is important to remember that Martha does not play nicely with others. Martha's effect can only be used if there's an Exceed monster on the field or there are no monsters on the field. All of the standard Exosister monsters all have the same shared effect. When your opponent moves a card out of either graveyard, you can special summon one Exosister Exceed monster from your extra deck. However, with Exosister Martha, her effect doesn't have to be triggered by the opponent. We can activate her effect by moving a card ourselves in many different ways. Now that we've reviewed the standard Exosister monsters, let's talk about their upgraded variants in the extra deck. There are 5 Exosister Exceed monsters that we need to understand with 2 effects per card, with the exception of Magnifica, our boss monster, who has 3 effects. First up is Michaelis, which is a combination of the name Elise and Archangel Michael. Upon successful summon, Michaelis allows us to target banish a card and search for an Exosister spell or trap. Next is Exosister Caspitel, which is a combination of the name Stella and Archangel Caspiel. Upon successful summon, Caspitel allows us to prevent special summons from the graveyard and search for an Exosister monster. Furthermore, we have Asophiel, which is a combination of the name Sophia and Archangel Raphael. Upon successful summon, Asophiel allows us to negate card effects activated in the graveyard for this turn and detach one material to target one monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Next up to bat, we have Jabreen, which is a combination of the name Irene and Archangel Gabriel. Upon successful summon, she allows you to negate one monster on the field and detach one material for an 800 attack boost to all Exceed monsters you control for the rest of the turn. Last but certainly not least, we have our boss monster, Magnifica, which is a combination of the name Michaelis and Caspatel. Magnifica allows us to non-target banish a card on the field and allows us to resummon an Exceed monster attached to her as a material, using herself as that material. This allows us to effectively dodge targeted effects by swapping Magnifica off the field into one of her Exosister attachments. Also, Magnifica allows us to attack twice for 5,600 base damage and a whopping 7,200 base damage when boosted by Irene's special effect, which grants Magnifica an additional 800 attack. Like the standard Exosister monsters, the Exceed monsters all share a very similar effect. Michaelis and Caspatel cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summoned from the graveyard, while Jabreen and Asophiel cannot be destroyed by effects activated by a monster special summoned from the graveyard. I will now demonstrate all of these effects for you in Master Duel. Michaelis allows us to target banish a card and search for an Exosister spell or trap. Caspatel allows us to prevent special summons from the graveyard and search for an Exosister monster. Asophiel allows us to negate card effects activated in the graveyard for this turn and detach one material to target one monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Upon successful summon, she allows you to negate one monster on the field and detach one material for an 800 attack boost to all Exceed monsters you control for the rest of the turn. Magnifica allows us to non-target banish a card on the field and allows us to resummon an Exceed monster attached to her as a material, using herself as that material. This allows us to effectively dodge targeted effects by swapping Magnifica off the field into one of her Exosister attachments. Also, Magnifica allows us to attack twice . Now that we've talked about the monsters, let's talk about the 5 Exosister support cards. Armament allows us to pay 800 life points, target one Exosister monster we control, and exceed into another Exosister monster from the extra deck. Carpe Diem protects our Exosisters from targeted effects from monsters special summoned from the graveyard. It allows us to also, on successful exceed summon of an Exosister monster, negate any card in the game for 1 turn, and destroy a spell or trap card when an Exosister monster is attacked or when an Exosister monster attacks. Returnia allows us to first target banish and then immediately exceed summon an Exosister monster from the extra deck, assuming you have the necessary monsters on the field to do so. Or target banish and then immediately non-target banish if you have already exceeded summoned the turn this card was activated. Vadis allows us to choose a pair of Exosisters and summon them to the field, reshuffling back into the deck at the end of the turn. Pax is the searcher of the deck. Pax allows us to search for any Exosister card. If we search for a monster, let's say Stella, upon successful search, if Stella's teammate Elise is on the field or in the graveyard, we can special summon Stella to the field. This also works with Sophia and Irene. I will now demonstrate all of these effects for you in Master Duel. Armament allows us to pay 800 life points, target 1 Exosister monster we control, and exceed into another Exosister monster from the extra deck. Carpe Diem protects our Exosisters from targeted effects from monsters special summoned from the graveyard. It allows us to also, on successful exceed summon of an Exosister monster, negate any card in the game for 1 turn, and destroy a spell or trap card when an Exosister monster is attacked or when an Exosister monster attacks. Returnia allows us to first target banish and then immediately exceed summon an Exosister monster from the extra deck, assuming you have the necessary monsters on the field to do so. Or target banish and then immediately non-target banish if you have already exceeded summoned the turn this card was activated. Vadis allows us to choose a pair of Exosisters and summon them to the field, reshuffling back into the deck at the end of the turn. Pax is the searcher of the deck. Pax allows us to search for any Exosister card. If we search for a monster, let's say Stella, upon successful search, if Stella's teammate Elise is on the field or in the graveyard, we can special summon Stella to the field. This also works with Sophia and Irene. Now that we've gone over the monsters and the support cards, let's put all of these combos together to make our boss monster and establish a field. For this next part of the video, I'll simulate 3 random hands and make Magnifica utilizing only Exosister cards to do so. It's important to remember that our end board is normally very small, consisting of Magnifica and 1, maybe 2 support cards, those support cards being Vadis and Returnia, and maybe an Infinite Impermanence if you draw it. Now let's go over 3 ways to one turn kill your opponent with Exosisters. The first way is Magnifica being on the field. Because our boss monster Magnifica is already on the field, we ideally only need one other Exosister monster to complement her. Ideally, that other monster should be Michaelis or Jabreen. Michaelis will assist with an additional banish or card search if we need it, and Jabreen can assist with a monster negate and boost our attack, which puts us well over the 8,000 life points when combined with Magnifica's double attack. I'm going to use Jabreen for the additional negate because our opponent will likely activate a monster effect at some point during the combo to prevent themselves from being OTK'd. Use Magnifica Banish to clear the field. Use Jabreen effect to boost the attack of all Exceed monsters by 800 attack, and attack with both monsters. Don't forget to double attack with Magnifica. It is very easy to forget this double attack effect. Okay, now let's one turn kill our opponent from a fresh field. Follow the standard Exosister combo line of your choice, but do not use Exosister packs until we detach Elise from an Exceed monster, thus putting her in the graveyard, or Michaelis Banish effect until we pax Martha to the field. We're going to use Elise in the graveyard to pax effect Martha onto the field, and Michaelis Banish to trigger Martha effect to summon another Exceed in order to combo our opponent. For this combo to work, we need 2 Exceed monsters, one of which should be Michaelis. Use Michaelis effect to detach Elise if she's attached, putting Elise in the graveyard and searching Exosister packs. Because Elise is in the graveyard, let's Pax effect search Martha to special summon her to the field. Use Michaelis Banish to banish a card in the graveyard, thus triggering Martha effect to Exceed into Jabreen. Jabreen effect to boost Exceed monsters by 800 attack. You can now directly attack with all 3 monsters if you want, but let's go into our boss monster, Magnifica. Magnifica Banish to clear the field, attack twice with Magnifica. This next combo relies on Returnia being on the field and ready to be activated. Utilize the standard Exosister combo into 2 Exceed monsters, or 1 Exceed monster if there's already another Exosister monster on the field. Utilize Michaelis and or Asophiel to clear the field of unwanted monsters and their cards to clear the way for multiple direct attacks. Attack with both Exceed monsters. Then use Returnia to banish a card on the field or graveyard. Then Returnia's secondary effect to combine both Exceed monsters into Magnifica and attack directly 2 more times with Magnifica, utilizing her banish effect if needed to clear the field of any unwanted cards. I wanted to briefly touch upon the weaknesses of Exosister and the troubles that you'll have playing this deck. As I'm sure you've probably noticed, Exosister burns through resources. We use some odd like 25 to 30% of the monsters in the main deck and extra deck just to create Magnifica. We're talking 4 Exosisters, 3 Exceed monsters, and whatever cards we have in our hand just to establish a field and maintain a competitive advantage. Duels lasting longer than 3 to 4 turns, there's a high chance you're going to literally run out of cards to play. There have been plenty of duels where I drew packs in turn 6 and had no available Exosister monsters in the main deck or extra deck. Exosisters has no graveyard or resource recursion at all. If you use a card, you will not see it again until you win or lose the duel and boot up another match. This is why it's important to play each card to the best of your ability and not shotgun effects as soon as your opponent makes the first move unless absolutely necessary. Exosisters also have little to no negation or protection. The only card that has a quick effect negate is Jabreen, and it's only after the turn that she's summoned. Because of this, you'll notice that when playing the deck, sometimes you just have to let things happen and rely on the dual knowledge that you have about the meta decks out there or the deck that you're going up against, and time your interruptions accordingly. In some cases, it may be easier to use the one negate that you have to negate the inboard monster. Hopefully banish it and pray to God that your opponent has no follow-up plays, because if they do, it's going to be a long one for you. Because we have no protection, we are absolutely susceptible to any form of card removal or card negation. One of the worst things that can happen while playing the deck is seeing Magnifica in the graveyard. If anything happens to Magnifica, I instantly fall to my knees, clutching my chest. Let's say you end your turn on a Nibiru token because you summoned too many times. Magnifica gets Raigeki'd, Kaiju'd, hit with a super poly that you can't even respond to, destroyed by Mirror Jade's secondary effect that for whatever reason blows up the entire field. Like, why does it even do that? Did they even read this card's effect? What do you mean I can't respond to the card's activation? I could go on all day about the absolutely horrific things that could happen to our fair maiden Magnifica, but I'm sure you get the point if you've been playing this game. Before we end the video, I did want to hand out some general dueling advice that has helped me while playing the deck. There are 100 ways to bake this cake. If you found something that works for you, definitely share it. We all work better when we work together. When dueling against Branded, wait until Albaz activates his fusion effect, then banish him to negate that fusion effect. Because he's already activated his effect, they won't be able to activate it again even if they put another Albaz on the field. In a pinch, we can use Asaphil to get rid of Mirror Jade. Throw off Mirror Jade's banish and then Asaphil it back to the extra deck. Asaphil returns Mirror Jade to a private location so Mirror Jade's Dark Hole effect won't activate. Having trouble dealing with Sanctifier Dragon? Remember that Magnifica and Returnia's secondary effect are non-targeting banishes. We can also use Jabreen to boost over Sanctifier's 3000 attack. When dueling against Yubel, the Yubel cards don't do much without their back row support, specifically Nightmare Pain. Summon your Exosister Exceed monsters, with the exception of Jabreen, in defense position, so the reflective damage is less in case you can't deal with the back row cards. Use Carpe Diem during the battle phase to get rid of Nightmare Pain, or Mirror Force for a field wipe during that battle phase. When dueling Snake Eye, any graveyard hate cards will do. Lance is a great card to use against Snake Eye, as well as to protect our monsters from being sent to the back row by Subversion. Kashtira is a rough deck to duel against using Exosister. Our banishes actually help their deck, so we're going to have to exploit a choke point in the Kashtira archetype. The deck's choke point is them having a single monster on the field, and their limited graveyard recursion. Unicorn, Fenrir, and Ogre all summon themselves to the field if there's no monster on the field, but they cannot activate this effect again if there's already a monster on the field. Meaning Kashtira players now have to find an alternate way of summoning another level 7 to the field after Unicorn, Fenrir, or Ogre's special summon effect has been used. This alternate method normally comes in the form of Kashtira Unicorn to search Kashtira Theosis to normal summon Rise Heart, who becomes a level 7 after his effect is activated. I generally let Rise Heart activate his effect and then negate after the top deck cards are banished to prevent him from becoming a level 7. Or we can just banish him outright, thus leaving only Unicorn on the field and whatever back row they might set. If Shangri is on the field, you'll need at least 2 negates or a single banish to deal with it. You can either negate Shangri twice, once on your turn and once on their turn, or banish it and let the attachments rest in the graveyard. If Kashtira Arise Heart is already on the field, the duel is over. If you're truly struggling with Kashtira, run 3 Book of Moon. And remember, take your time, limit their field to 1 monster, understand they need 2 level 7s on the field to even play the deck, and you'll be alright if you time your interruptions correctly. Runick isn't a deck that you should worry about while playing Exosister. Use Martha to trigger Flashing Fire and Freezing Curses. Once that's done, Michaelis and or Magnifica to banish their single copy of Runick Fountain, and then celebrate your victory with a glass of the finest ale. If you summon Michaelis and they use Flashing Fire or Freezing Curses, just chain banish. Returnia is also a good choice for banishing their field spell if everything goes wrong and you have an Exosister monster on the field. When dueling Mathmech, use Caspatel or any graveyard hate to stop them from special summoning from the graveyard. The deck literally falls apart if they cannot use the graveyard or Mathmech Superfactorial. Fire Kings is a bastard of a deck to duel against, but we can take advantage of their deck generally being unable to utilize cards that are banished and their heavy graveyard usage. We can use graveyard hate like Necro Valley to keep their cards in the graveyard, or we can set up Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, banish their field card, and field wipe them. If Promethean Princess is lurking in the graveyard, we can hit her with Called by the Grave, we can lock her in the graveyard with Necro Valley, Caspatel, or Asafield. Remember, if they are in a pinch, they will most likely try to set up Phonics to search for Skyburn. Save your negate if possible for Phonics, or use Lance to protect from Skyburn's destruction effect. If you're going up against Horus or Naturia, use Caspatel to stop them from summoning from the graveyard and the deck will fall apart. If Naturia Beast is giving you problems, we can use Michaelis to attack over it, Returnia to banish it, or we can Baguska to hopefully buy us an extra turn if things have completely fallen apart. For this last part of the video, I want to show you how to build the Exosister deck. For advanced and or optimal players, your Exosister core will look something like this. There are a number of flex spots in the main deck and the extra deck that allow you to customize the deck to fit your needs. Struggling against Kashtira? 3 Book of Moon. Tired of getting negated by Imperm? 3 Forbidden Lance. Tired of Yubel? Mirror Force the field with Dimensional Fissure active. Personally, my deck building strategy is geared for being as versatile as possible against the top 5 or so decks. This is not OCG, this is not TCG, this is Master Duel. Master Duel is its own animal. This is not a best of 3 format, it's a best of 1. When dueling, you don't know what you're even going up against until your opponent plays a card. So I feel the deck's versatility is most important in Master Duel, and I try to keep that in mind when building my deck. For example, this is the list I used for my last Exosister vs. the Meta video. During that video, the top decks were Unchained Yubel, Snake Eyes, Branded, and Fire Kings, led by none other than Promethean Princess herself. So when building my deck, I knew I had to shut off the graveyard, protect my monsters from destruction, and punish my opponents for using 5 decks that all abuse the graveyard. And when Tenpai Dragons gets released, I'll have to readjust my deck to deal with monster effects in the battle phase without destroying the versatility that we've already achieved. And that concludes my Exosister tutorial and guide. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the ladder.